AI told me that I should start this video with a controversial statement. So here's one for you. Your first RevOps hire has a very high probability of failure. And this can happen because of three things. There could be mismatched expectations for revenue outcomes, or there could be poor executive buy in, or there could be a mismatch between the stage of your organization and the skill of your RevOps team. So, if you're watching this video, you're most likely a revenue leader looking for direction on the right decision of whether to build an internal RevOps team or to work with an external partner. Hi, I'm Shashank, and I'm the RevOps strategist at Evenbound. I bring a decade of experience building RevOps and strategy outcomes for both tech and industrial companies globally. And by the end of this video, you'll have an actionable framework to make the right decision on building your RevOps team. So let's get started. In this video, we'll look at three things. First, we'll see how RevOps is a dynamically evolving function and it has to mature along with how your revenue engine and your revenue teams mature. Then we'll look at, say, the three most popular approaches to building RevOps at your org and talk about the pros and cons of each of the approach. And finally, I'll help you with a framework on how to make the right decision for building your RevOps org. So first, let's talk about, say, your RevOps maturity curve. As your org matures, your revenue engine becomes more complex. Your RevOps team also has to mature to keep up with the complexities of say, your revenue organization. At sub $5 million in revenue, your needs are very tactical. You'll ideally need somebody, a person or a group of people who can help you with maintaining your CRM, building and generating reports. You need to onboard teams, offboard teams, and you need to do market research, do data cleanups, etc., which is like very highly tactical work. But the moment you cross that critical $5 million mark and you're marching towards, say, something like a 10 million or 15 or $20 million mark, that's where your org needs to become more transformational. And that's how your sales, your marketing, your account management function would be. But then at the backbone, you also need to have a very transformational RevOps team. And what this team is going to do for you is to put early pieces in terms of, say, your forecasting, build predictive analytics for you, and they will build the right kind of systems that scale as your org scales, both in terms of revenue as well as in terms of complexity. And then finally, as your org is going beyond, say, that 30, 40, $50 million mark, that is when you'll need a very highly strategic RevOps team. You need teams with experience in financial modeling, in collaborating with leadership, building AI systems, doing strategy consulting. They should be able to do, say, your revenue strategy, do your org planning, your business planning, your hiring plans. They should be able to enable you with the revenue predictability that your org deserves. So there are two very common mistakes that I see organizations make frequently. The first is that they either hire strategic resources very early into the journey, or they hire very tactical resources at a very mature stage. And then secondly, what they do is they hire very late into their journey, which is, hey, if you need a transformational resource, then you should be thinking about hiring them at least a couple of quarters early, so that, hey, you have the right foundation set in for building your RevOps org. Now that we understand the RevOps evolution, let's talk about the three approaches to building your RevOps function. Firstly, there's the classic hire and build internal teams for RevOps. And this is great. This is the most classic, this is the most commonly found way of building, the most common way of building a RevOps team, because there are some really great benefits that go with this particular approach. The most key critical ones is that you get long-term focus and continuity, and you get complete strategic alignment between your teams when you're building your internal RevOps functions. And the most important thing is that, hey, there is deep amount of cultural alignment that happens between, say, this team that builds your infrastructure and your go-to-market teams, right? But then there are key challenges with this approach as well. The time to value that you'll realize from an internal hire in RevOps is going to be higher. And then hiring itself is a key challenge, because this is that one critical function where you expect the team to come with experience in building systems. They should have technical expertise, they should have sales expertise, they should have marketing expertise, they should understand all of the functions, they should be good with data, they should be good with systems, they should be good with strategic planning, etc. And so that's like too many skills wrapped up into, say, one person or one team, and hiring really becomes a challenge. And the most common trend that I've seen that happens is that, hey, usually organizations end up hiring like one person initially because they don't want to double down on budget and hire like a whole team at the get-go. So they'll end up hiring one person, and then you'll more often than not end up hiring like a CRM admin. The CRM admin will more often than not come like with a very limited experience and exposure that leads to bad data, poor system architecture, lack of accurate reporting, which then leads to frustration and, like I said at the beginning of this video, the failure of your first RevOps hire, right? Which then brings me to say the second approach, which is, hey, instead of building your RevOps team, you could just go out and you could hire an external RevOps team. And this is great because an external RevOps team will hit the ground running and help you with rapid outcomes. They'll bring like a very broad expertise across all of the different skill sets that I talked about earlier. And then they have scalable fractional teams. So, hey, you could dial up the size of the team in the initial stages when your needs are very tactical, but then you can dial down the size of the team with, say, an outsourced RevOps team as well. But there are challenges with this particular approach as well. The most critical challenge is that complete business context is difficult to translate to, say, your external partner, and setting up the right rhythm where each individual in the setup knows their roles and responsibilities and delivers is a little difficult to achieve. And to do that, you need a very mature partner with deep experience and very well laid out delivery systems in place. The most common way that the outsourcing of RevOps team fails is that organizations tend to hire taskmasters as their external RevOps consultants and not true consultants. So what this leads to is, hey, you'll come up with your own project roadmap, your own way of doing things, and then there's a lot that gets lost in translation, and you'll end up with more complexity than what you had originally signed up for. And then the second most common way that this particular engagement fails is that there could be situations where goals uh, tend to be unclear, or there is like no clear split of responsibilities between the teams. And that brings us to the third approach, which is the hybrid approach, and our recommendation on how you should be building your RevOps team. In the hybrid approach, you get best of both worlds. You get to keep an internal team, whereas you get to also outsource to an external team. But then there are two ways in which you can execute this engagement. You could keep the strategic parts of the RevOps to yourself. And the key benefit here is that there's going to be long-term continuity. But then there is a caveat as well with this particular approach, where you'll need to have the right hire, you'll need to bring in the right talent. And then the second problem with, say, this particular setup is that the average tenure for senior RevOps leaders in the industry is under 2 years, which is definitely a risk because they would have built all of this context, and before they have any measurable results, they're already out in the market looking for the next job. The second way that this could be executed is where you outsource the strategic, but ensure that, hey, you keep the tactical pieces and you gradually build the tactical pieces internally. This is where the benefit is that you get a wider expertise on demand. All of the skill sets that you do not want to double down and invest in early, you could outsource some of that. And this is a very enterprise level strategy. All of your Fortune 500 companies tend to, say, follow this strategy where they go get one of the big fours and they outsource, say, some part of, say, the strategic revenue planning to, say, an external agency. But this comes with a caveat as well. If you are planning to outsource the strategic part of your business to an external partner, then you should also have a clear plan to internalize those skills at a later stage, and you need to hire the right teams right now. With this, we've seen the three approaches to building your RevOps team. And now what we'll see is how you make that decision to building your RevOps team. For that, what we recommend is a 4-pillar framework that will make this a very objective decision. First and foremost, you need to identify the org state, the maturity of your RevOps, or the maturity of your revenue engine, and you need to hire a few quarters early to avoid reactive decisions. Like we discussed in the org state, there are 3 different ways in which you could hire your teams. You would hire very tactical teams or transformational teams or strategic teams, and you need to identify that right and hire a few quarters early. The second pillar is that you need to identify the right budget. Ideally, your total ops budget should land anywhere from, say, 3 to 4% of your revenue. Anything under 3%, you're under investing in your operations, or anything above 4% is a little rich. And then finally, hey, two other pillars, which is how quickly do you want results delivered more often than not. The hybrid or the outsourced approach is where you get the fastest results delivered, but then you also need to consider long-term continuity there. And then finally, the fourth pillar is how tactical your needs are. If your needs are very, very tactical, it's a no-brainer. Go get an external partner. If your needs are a well-balanced mix of strategic and tactical, then you should be thinking about following the hybrid approach. Here are a few golden rules. I think I'm repeating myself, but then match your approach. Hybrid models have the best ROI, and consider the budget timeline and your current needs at this point of time before you make the decision to hire and build your RevOps team. And some of the mistakes that you need to be avoiding is that you should be hiring for the right kind of skill and expertise that you need. You should not underestimate the costs, and you should choose based on your goals and not on the trends that exist in the market. I hope that you got an actionable framework to choose the right RevOps approach from, say, this video, and I'll be happy to help you with personalized recommendations for your business. You can write to me at shashank@evenbound.com, or you can drop me a DM on LinkedIn too. There's an Evenbound blog that breaks down this complete topic of internal versus external versus hybrid RevOps, and it explains some of the concepts in detail. The link is in the description. Please like and share, also subscribe, and do drop a comment with your company name and stage for personalized advice.